bloody Heisenberg.
Nicolas Cage himself.
So, okay, first of all, his introduction. The moment you meet him, we kind of got an idea what the type of character he is. And you say Maru was the comedic relief? I feel like Heisenberg was. Because he doesn't care what's going on, all he cares about is putting on a show. Like, even when you go back to the areas after you defeat Maru, he has something set out to say this way. Like a freaking carnival sign. It's like, dude, wow, this guy is hilarious. And, of course, he reveals that... I mean, he doesn't really reveal it to Ethan. I feel like Ethan should have figured this out by now. But obviously, Heisenberg points out that Rose has power. And obviously, if we've played Resident Evil 7, it's obviously to do with the mold. In fact, Chris's team even mentioned that this has something to do with the mold as well. So, how does Ethan not put it together that, you know, his daughter might be a molded? You know,
Yeah,
why is it when he's speaking to Heisenberg, he's like, oh, that makes sense. Like, okay, were you just carrying around all the corpses of her just for the craps and giggles?
I mean, Ethan's not the sharpest tool in the shed.
Well, okay, let's be real. None of the protagonists really are. The only one I'd say who's close enough to being the smartest is Jill, because she actually acts like a detective. In fact, before Chris figured it out, Jill managed to figure out that Albert was a criminal, or was behind everything before Chris. Even if Chris saw the projection screen of Albert with the other scientists, he still doesn't figure it out.
Yeah, I mean, Chris is a very punch boulder first, use brain second kind of guy.
Okay, true. And Ethan's kind of in the same boat. Even when the Duke said, get all the pieces and we'll be able to help her, he's like, no, she's dead! It's like, no, I'm literally telling you, she has powers. Like, I get it, he was grieving because he's literally holding the head of his daughter, but...
Yeah, and to be fair, you know, in theory, Ethan was like a normal dude before all this, which means that he's not as experienced with the wacky Resident Evil world as some of the other characters.
Dude, I don't believe that. Okay, kind of going off track. Ethan's story, Resident Evil 7, takes place after Resident Evil 6, and all the crazy stuff that happens there, multiple cities are bombed, zombies are running the streets, giant monsters are about. Was he living under a rock this whole time? Did he not hear about the incident in Raccoon City?
I mean... Yeah, but... Still, I mean, there's a difference between being like, man, there was some spooky monster zombie thing, and being like, oh yeah, you can chop up a baby and then bring it back to life. Like,
okay, fair enough. Okay,
one is conceivable within the realm of logic, and the other is magic.
Okay, fair enough. So let's talk about Heisenberg's story. So when you go to his factory, this is very Frankenstein inspired. Like, he's bringing the corpses back to life with technology, he's blending them together with machinery to create a robotic army, which, first of all, sounds wicked. Don't know how he got like nearly hundreds of people into his factory to become robots. Like, if you get to a section, you can see like hundreds of people on like conveyor belts as their robotic forms. I'm just like, okay, I've been to this village, I have not seen enough houses to house this many people.
Well, I guess the idea would be that, you know, there used to be more, but then they slowly got... Or maybe it's a case of, like, they've been, like, capturing, like, visitors and stuff.
That could be the case, which, you know, that's not too
Don't think about it too hard.
It's true. And so, obviously, we kind of also get revealed that Mother Miranda, which we haven't even mentioned, really, yeah, he brings up the fact that Ethan's being tested this whole time. Like, you know, Lady Dimitrescu, Donna, and Maru were pretty much set to die. Or at least if they did, unless Ethan was killed by them. Because Miranda has plans to use Ethan and his daughter. Because I think even Miranda kind of knew Ethan's twist. But obviously Heisenberg's trying to convince him, join me, like father and son. Which I will admit, I would have actually liked it if they did something similar with the whole Resident Evil 7, because in Resident Evil 7 you can either choose to cure Mia or the daughter of Jack, and you get two different type of endings. One of them which is very depressing, the other one not so depressing. I would have actually kind of liked it if they did something without Heisenberg.
Yeah, I think that would have been cool. Like, people have already done, like, fan comics and fan stuff to being like, what, or like fan theories, like, what would have happened if Ethan teamed up with Heisenberg, you know?
Okay, let's pull the cat out of the bag here. Heisenberg would have betrayed Ethan, let's be real. Like, he wasn't looking for a best...
Probably, but...
He was going to try and take over
we'll never
the village.
know.
He's not a good
Yeah,
guy.
but, like, the implication was that he was building his army so that way he could take on Mother Miranda. Not necessarily because he wants to take over the world or anything.
Yeah, and I can believe his army could have defeated Miranda and her Lycans. I don't think he would have been able to take over the military of America. Can you imagine him just marching to America? Give us your best shot! Just a military tank just blows them all up.
Yikes.
Clear!
Well,
And I guess we might as well talk about all the unique enemies of this game, like, or in this section. The Frankenstein monsters. I can't remember what they were called. As I never put them down in my notes. Oops. But yeah, you kind of get an idea of like which ones were experimented on the most. Like the first enemies you meet already have their hearts exposed, their top half exposed, so you get the idea that they're not ready. They're the work in progress. And then as it goes on, you see eventually just how much they're changed, like, to the point they're like these big daddy looking monstrosities marching down. It's like, oh, so that's what you're working on. So we kind of get an idea of how powerful his army would have been. And should we just talk about how much of a Chad Heisenberg is?
he's pretty cool. Not gonna lie.
Like his design, his powers, and even his transformation was pretty cool. And just when he enters a scene, man, he looks like he's in control. Like, you know what, mate? Let's talk, because let's be real here. I could just throw a metal shard right through your brain right now.
Yeah, honestly, his boss fight and his eventual defeat is easily the most contrived, because it's like, but don't worry, Ethan. In order to defeat Magneto, here's a tank with guns made of not metal, ? That he can't control. That Heisenberg himself made for some reason?
Yeah, at first when I was playing this game, I thought Chris was the one that made it. You know, he was building this to take on Heisenberg. Because it looked like that, you know. He's asked to pass over the wrench, and, you know, he's down there, so why else would he be building the same? But when, just like you said, when you mentioned that Heisenberg built it, I was like, why?
Yeah, it's like it's like breaking into the Fortress of Solitude and finding a kryptonite gun. It's like, wow, thanks, Superman. Thanks for having this lying around, like unguarded. Yeah,
do you think?
A little nonsensical.
Do you think he was planning to use that with Ethan? Like, he was going to give Ethan that? But actually, he says he can't use the metal from it, but then immediately, when you're knocked out of it, he uses his magnetic powers and is flying through the roof and all that stuff. So...
yeah, it's... I assume he used his powers on metal and then used that metal to lift up the car.
Maybe.
And, like, that's what happened?
Man, like, yeah.
But
that's
even
weird.
then, it's like... yeah, I don't know. It's kind of weird. Plus, there's the fact that it's like, okay, even if the car is made of some sort of special metal that Heisenberg can't affect for some reason, wouldn't he still be able to stop the bullets like that you're shooting? Like,
They're rubber bullets.
It's one of those things where they. Okay, yeah, sure. It's one of those things where they made the villain so powerful that it doesn't make sense that he gets defeated. Like Heisenberg, they gave him Magneto powers. Why? It doesn't make. He was too powerful. He was too powerful to be reasonably beatable.
Yeah, like.
Also, they gave him this giant metal hammer and he never uses it.
Yeah, that was always
Like,
kind of
what?
weird with me. Like, I feel like maybe if I looked into it, maybe he was gonna have like a sort of stage with his boss fight. First, he was gonna fight you with his hammer. You damage him enough to the point he resorts to turn into Optimus Prime. And I tell you, since we're talking about Heisenberg's boss fight, I guess we should probably mention the whole section where Chris finally spills the beans, even though he could have done that like 3 times at this point in the story. So
Yeah.
he kind of reveals that it's not Umbrella, which, let's be real here, that is the real twist of this game. Umbrella had nothing to do with this. Dun dun dun.
Da-da. Yeah, that was cool. That it was like establishing that this was like the place that inspired Umbrella to come into existence.
Yeah,
so that's always fun.
Yeah, so because I feel like at this point they were even aware, like, okay, at this point is Umbrella even available to do this? Like, they've been defeated how many times now? 20, 24?
Yeah, like they don't even really like exist anymore, or like don't really.
Like Albert's dead,
gone,
Spencer's
like,
dead. Like, who else is there?
Yeah, yeah. Which is why it's like, what are they even gonna do in Resident Evil 9? I don't even know. But yeah,
well, I have an idea for that, but we should probably finish off the 2 last sections of this.
Indeed. Overall, though, I will say Heisenberg had a lot of personality. He was easily the most complex and nuanced character. I think that his boss fight, I mean, it looks like it's very gameplay-y, so how fun it was is up to other people. I'm a little annoyed by how contrived his defeat was, considering how powerful he is. And I feel like they kind of squandered his complex character by having Ethan just be like, "Fuck you, die in a hole." Like, I don't know. I like I like Heisenberg, but I don't think they did enough with him for me to really rank him super high. I mean, he's cool. I like him. He's easily the best character of the lore. And I do love like the cyborgs and all that stuff. That stuff's fun, but I do think they kind of squandered his potential. But that's just my opinion.
Is that all you got to add to it, or is there something else you want to mention?
Nope. That's it about Heisenberg for me.
Right, so I'm going to be brief because we are getting to the 1.5 hour mark. Jesus Christ, there's a lot to talk about this game.
Oh, really? Jesus, we've been at it for a minute.
Right, Heisenberg's boss fight, I kind of agree with Jaru in the sense that it was more gameplay focused than horror focused. Like, I think at this point in the game, you've gotten through so much horror that it's getting to... Every Resident Evil game kind of goes through that trope where once you've gotten through the horror, it becomes more action oriented. In fact, after this section, it becomes Call of Duty.
Right.
I mean, it was fun, don't get me wrong. I loved playing as Chris again. I was fanboying through most of that. But, yeah, we got to a point now where, we're pretty much, the boss. We've dealt with so many monsters that could they really surprise us? And I was expecting a sort of magnetic type of boss fight, but I didn't expect Heisenberg to become a transformer. And little side note, I love the fact that they referenced the boulder punch from Resident Evil 5.
I'll kill that boulder punching asshole.
Like, fun fact actually about that was not in the original script. That was improvised.
Really?
Yeah, the actor said that was such a memeable... It was in an interview, which I'll try and find it and leave a link to it in the description. But yeah, the actor said, like, fans love that section so much, why not just bring it up randomly just for the reference? Which, that is great. And the fact Capcom were like, yeah, okay. Because even Capcom themselves have referenced the boulder punch, like... me and Jaru at one point talked about Marvel vs. Capcom, and I went up to look up some fun facts about it, and if you play as the Hulk in Chris, and you play as the Hulk and switch to Chris, Hulk will refer to Chris as Rock Puncher. So, I don't know why. It's kind of a nice bit of fan service, and the fact that that was looked at years ago as the most stupidest thing from Resident Evil, now is looked at to be the most epic yet stupidest thing ever. It's just funny.
Indeed.
And Heisenberg Boss Fight was really fun. Like, the tank section was really cool. It's kind of a shame that the chainsaw arm was only used as like, you know, the defense, you know, whereas the gun was more the thing to damage. I was really hoping, like, I don't know how. I was hoping I would chop off his like saw arm, and I also love that the finisher, like, Ethan's flying through the air and he sees the tank and somehow he times it so that he can land on it and blow up Heisenberg. That was freaking cool. I don't care how dumb that is. That was cool. And the fact he even uses the line that Heisenberg said just before throwing him towards the propeller guy, saying, "Your funeral," just blows him up right after. Like, Ethan has taken the spot as the best dad in gaming. Let's be real. Just for that line.
Yeah.
And now we're gonna... I guess we should move on to the final lord, or I guess the ruler, really. And of course the ending of the game. Mother Miranda. To me, the worst villain in Resident Evil in general. I love this game, I love the bosses, and I even love her boss fight, but as a character, she is the most boring. Like, nothing about her is interesting.
I mean, she has a sympathetic backstory.
She does.
She's trying to save her daughter, bring her, or resurrect her daughter, I should say. And she's a shapeshifter, so she shows up a number of times.
That was an interesting twist, that the old hag you kept speaking to was Miranda. That was a good twist.
Yeah. And it makes it cool because you notice, like, every time in the game that you spot Mother Miranda, it's like shortly thereafter you encounter the old hag. So it's like, interesting. So that's cool and all. But when push comes to shove, it's like, is she as iconic and cool as Wesker? No. Is she as threatening and monstrous as Birkin from RE2? No. Like, is she as fun and, like, threatening as the Nemesis? No.
Like, don't get me wrong, her transformations
really
look cool. That they are such cool designs for her. They're just not utilized till the end.
Yeah. Yeah, no. If we're talking about pure design quality, she has some really cool transformations, some cool moments in her boss fight, and that's fun. Don't get me wrong. But from a character standpoint, like, I guess if we want to compare her to someone, we could compare her to Sadler from Resident Evil 4. And Sadler, to me, was always
amazing.
Like, what was that?
Amazing.
You're partially cutting out, so I'm not sure.
I'm saying, like, you were saying, like, isn't he? He was like, isn't he is? And you were starring. I was like, amazing.
Not that.
Well, he is. Let's be real here. He's more entertaining than her.
Well, here's the thing. He's a worse character, but he's probably more fun to watch. Because he doesn't have a character.
No,
he's literally just, "Wahaha! I want to take over President World! Wahaha!"
At least,
like, okay.
He's got a plan, and, you know, he's putting it into action, and, you know, he taunts you. That's what a villain should do. I mean, Miranda does it as well as the old hag.
He's a Bond villain, though. He's not a character. It's like, "Oh, you may have beaten my henchmen, Mr. Kennedy, but you won't get me."
It's cheesy.
Mustache.
It's cheesy and dumb, but I love him for that. He's so entertaining. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can have villains
not a character.
You can have villains that are super, you know, deep and story contrived, and, you know, just have a lot of, like, backstories. But you can also have villains like was it Salazar or Saldor? Like, I always mix him up with the midgets now. Yeah, Sadler was just so entertaining from beginning to end. Like, from the very start you meet him, he's taunting you, he's cracking jokes, like, even the way he sarcastically goes, "Oh, when I do return the president's daughter, I might ask for a bit of funds. You know, it's quite expensive running a dangerous cult." It's like, just that alone makes him a great villain. He enjoys what he's doing. He's not as controlled by the virus. He knows what he wants, and he's in control. Miranda's kind of like that. She clearly had influence with these people, but the only time we ever get to know it is with these random villagers who just all die anyway, so all we could learn about them and Miranda's gone.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, Mother Miranda is not fun to watch in the same way that Sadler was, but the flip side is that she has more of a character. But
I'm slowly going off you, Jaru. Slowly going off you.
Anyway, point is, whether Sadler or Miranda are better is gonna boil down to personal taste. I think she's ultimately extremely forgettable, whereas at least Sadler had some funny lines. So, to put it as the great Leon Kennedy put it, you are small time, Sadler, and but if he's small time, then Mother Miranda is even smaller time. So overall, I would not say Mother Miranda is the best villain ever in Resident Evil. Honestly, like, I feel like she pales in comparison to even Resident Evil 7's villains. Like,
yeah.
Which is ironic that Evelyn actually gets a cameo in the game, considering she's actually way more engaging and interesting than Mother Miranda ever was.
And the fact that her twist was quite interesting, because she's technically at the start of the game. It's just that you don't know it until either wait until you miss the note and you end up, killing her with the antidote, and you figure out, oh, Evelyn was not a little girl, she was the grandma.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it is cool how Evelyn was effectively like, and it is cool how Evelyn was effectively like a failed clone of Miranda's daughter, which gives Evelyn even more cool context. But like, what's funny is I'm getting a little ahead of myself, but like, Ethan's daughter is inevitably going to be a far more interesting character than Ethan ever was, and much like how Miranda's daughter was a far more interesting character than Miranda ever was, and that seems to be a running theme in this game. So yeah, Mother Miranda, after the absolute fun that was Evelyn, Wesker, Birkin, like all these complex, interesting, entertaining, wacky character villains, Miranda's just kind of there. She's meh.
Yeah, like you mentioned what? Oh, you're cutting out a bit there, Jaru.
What's up?
Sorry, you were cutting out a bit there. After you went meh, it just went all static.
I didn't say anything else after that, so we're
okay.
good.
Okay, yeah, you mentioned in Albert, that's a good villain to compare to, because Albert's been with the franchise since the first game, all the way leading up to his end, which is Resident Evil 5. And even in the first game, even if you look at the PS1 gameplay, you can immediately tell he's a shady person. But he doesn't try and hide it. Well, I mean, he's clearly trying to hide it, but through story way, he's not really doing his best to hide it. He's shady, he's a smart mouth, he's clearly egotistical, especially in Resident Evil 5 when you're fighting him and he's just taunting Chris and Shiva through the majority of it. He's entertaining in a way of like, he thinks of himself as the best, like he's the most powerful and he is humanity perfected. That was the whole point of the whole Tyrant experiment. He wanted to make the perfect human, including himself.
Yeah.
And
like Wesker just has he's just so cool. Like, he's so cool. He's the coolest Resident Evil villain.
I mean, yeah, like in Resident Evil 5, he throws his sunglasses at Chris, quickly moves fast and attacks him, and then grabs his glasses again and puts them back on. Like, he literally throws shade on the heroes. and another thing you mentioned, the Evelyn. Well, even not just Evelyn, the entire Baker family was way more interesting as villains. Even Lucas, I played the DLC, not a hero. You play as Chris and you defeat Lucas. And when you actually do that, Lucas actually turned out he was working with Umbrella. He was a scientist, which makes sense. It kind of foreshadowed, but he was never stable when he was human. Like,
yeah. But, you bringing up Resident Evil 7, I think you can actually make some very interesting comparisons to Resident Evil 7, because, like, the first big villain of Resident Evil 7, and the one that acts most like a tyrant, is Jack Baker. And so, in many ways, like, Jack and Lady Dimitrescu fill a similar role, but I would say Jack was a way better character.
As a character,
and then we have,
as a tyrant villain, every time he appeared, it took 3 headshots and he was down pretty easily, so there was kind of that unfortunate side to him.
Yeah, but I would still say he was more threatening and overall than Lady Dimitrescu, just because of his sheer manic energy.
He did scare me when he punched through a wall.
Yeah, like, he does some crazy, scary shit. Like, I'm way more intimidated by Jack, despite him being several feet shorter than Lady Dimitrescu.
And using a shovel.
But, yeah. Yeah, I love Jack. Like, Jack's great. And then, like, Marguerite fills, like, the creepy role that, you could compare her to... what would be the best person to compare her to?
Donna?
Like, I guess she sort of fills the role of, like...
I guess no, she's more Maru. She's more Maru because she turns into a disfigured monster.
Monster thing, yeah. She doesn't have, like, psychic powers or anything.
No,
yeah,
that's
okay,
Evelyn.
Then, true. Okay, so I'd say, like, Lady Dimitrescu Moreau and Marguerite fulfill a similar role. And I'd say they're very similar. Because, like, Marguerite's a very gameplay-oriented character, too. It's just all about, like, she has a great boss fight. But,
yeah.
like, she's not exactly the most complex of the characters. And so, like, I'd say she and Moreau are fairly comparable. And then there's Lucas. And I'd say Lucas and Heisenberg fulfill a similar niche in their games, in that they're both, like, the tinkerers who, like, send the minions after you. They're talking to you on a speakerphone. They're very showman-like.
Yeah. Heisenberg being more like the greatest showman, and Lucas being like Jigsaw.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, very, very good comparison. And, like, I don't know who I like more between Heisenberg and Lucas. They've given Lucas a lot of really cool DLC as well, so, like, he's gotten a lot.
I think what makes a lot of those characters so likable is also their actors and actresses. Like, they put so much work into these characters. Like, Lucas's actor is clearly having a fun time. Like, when he's doing that whole tick tock as you're about to get killed in a trap, that you can tell the actor was having a bit of fun playing as this just like maniac, with a show.
Absolutely. But like, overall, when push comes to shove, it's like, I think Jack Baker and Evelyn make Resident Evil 7, at least as far as the villains are concerned, a lot more engaging than the lords of Resident Evil 8 overall. Just because Evelyn is a much more complex and interesting final boss, who you get to kind of, like, build up to a lot more effectively. And I think Jack is just both a really fun, like, persistent threat and has a ton of personality, while also being a cool big monster fight. So, like, overall, I'd say I'd prefer the villains of RE7 to RE8. Just my personal opinion.
Yeah, and we were mostly talking about Miranda, and yeah, that's what's kind of interesting, is that all these very cool characters, Miranda just gets overshadowed by them. Like, even though it was cool that she kind of revealed that Ethan's not exactly human anymore, it turns out he was a molded. The bit where Jack stomped on his head, that wasn't him knocking him out. Ethan was dead. Like, his head was crushed. So, yeah, it was even kind of tragic. And I feel like this is one of the few times we actually play as a BOW in a game. Like, we're technically playing as a zombie. Like, that was such a sad twist. But it kind of made Ethan's character more... I think Resident Evil 8 made Ethan more likeable to me. Just his whole story of confronting Miranda, and even when he's literally, oh, pardon me, even when he is literally falling apart and dying, the fact he was willing to do so much to defeat Miranda really showed how much of a cool character he was.
You know what? You make a fantastic point. I think Ethan's character is vastly more engaging in Resident Evil 8 than he ever was in Resident Evil 7. Like, in Resident Evil 7, he was unrealistically, like, badass for no good reason.
He wasn't
was
really
just like,
badass.
oh man, this is so inconvenient.
He was just more lucky. Like,
no, but he didn't react like a human. He would, like, see some horrific shit and be like, what the hell is this? This is such bullshit. What the hell's going on? Like, sorry, Ethan, the correct response is to go, ah! Oh my god! Ah! Like, he does not act like a human.
Do you know what's funny? In Resident Evil 8, they kind of redeemed that. When he gets his hand chopped off this time, he's actually screaming, like, oh my god, my hand!
Yeah, they do better in that regard, and they make his suffering when he realizes what's happened to his daughter, feel so much more believable. Like, when he has that moment where he's, like, breaking down, like, after he fails to save those villager lady, and whenever he finds out about his daughter, it's like, it makes him feel a lot more like a person. Which makes him his quest more relatable, more engaging, and it makes his sacrifice at the end much more satisfying.
Yeah, because when you look at characters in the previous Resident Evil games, like, for instance, Resident Evil 1's a good example. Your entire team, like, you play as Chris and Jill, and they've been with this group of 20 specialized soldiers. Like, they've been through hell and back together. And unfortunately, many of them died, aside Rebecca, Barry Burton, and Albert. And what's even tragic, they learned that this whole time, their whole group was sent to die by Albert. But they don't really act sad when those characters die. Like, for instance, when Chris is pushed out of the way to be saved before the shark could kill him, he doesn't even really go, oh my god, no, Jack is dead. It's like, oh, shit, there's a shark here now. It's like, mate, your longtime friend just got eaten alive after sacrificing himself. And even Jill kind of reacted the same way when one of her teammates died from snake poisoning. She just shrugged it off and just continued walking around the place after her team died. So Ethan reacted to how villagers are dying was more genuine and more realistic for a civilian to react when they've been thrown into a shit show.
Yeah.
And the fact this even mentally messed with him as well, because as you continue on, Ethan just sounded so desperate, so destroyed.
Yeah. And I really like that. That made him just a far more engaging character overall.
It also made him defeating Miranda more satisfying. Like, even though she wasn't a good villain, him finally defeating her and saving his daughter just felt so satisfying.
Indeed.
But at the same time, very tragic because people wondered, why did Ethan die when Miranda died, even though technically he's not connected to her, he's connected to the molded. Well, his heart was ripped out and he was dying.
Yeah. And also, it's like, you know, even the molded that you fight in RE7, it's like, they can only take so much damage before they fall apart. And, like, perhaps more importantly, you know, even if Ethan wasn't already using up a lot of his energy trying to live after getting wounded so much over the course of the game, on top of that, they end up blowing up the megamycete.
Yeah, that's what it's called.
Which would have killed him anyway. Although, an argument could be made that maybe he isn't dead. Maybe he survived in some way.
Yeah, which we're going to actually get to that.
Gets into...
Yeah, in fact, one thing that I actually did remember, this is actually something I've written down. Lady Demetress, when she tastes your blood, actually mentions Ethan's blood's going stale. So it could be the fact that Ethan was always dying. This was just his last moment. It's just unfortunate timing that it had to be when his daughter needs rescuing.
Yeah, it's interesting because we don't really know the full extent of what Ethan was.
I mean, we thought Evelyn was dead. Like, she died, and she's still alive, technically.
Yeah, and like, it's due to the regenerative nature of the Megamycete and due to the like psychic imprint, like the psychic memory of the Megamycete, it's kind of hard to say who's dead for real.
I mean, I looked at one DLC where you play as Jack's brother, and despite the fact that you killed him with the cure, it turns out he's still alive, as like some super molded.
Really?
Yeah, he was technically still alive. Now, apparently he got finished off finally by Jack's brother. In fact, you don't use a gun in that game. You literally use your fist. You punch him molded to death. It's pretty wild. I think it's called what was it called? I'm pretty sure you could probably look it on YouTube. But yeah, it was like a final DLC where you find out what happened with that lady after Ethan chose to save Mia, because that's the canon ending.
Yeah.
And Jack is still alive. Yeah, well, maybe not now. He seems to be permanently dead, but we fought that the first and second time. So, I guess
I never actually watched all of the RE7 DLC, so this is all kind of news to me.
Yeah, it was actually a pretty good DLC. You should either play it or have a look on YouTube. So it is pretty good. Gameplay-wise, it's not too great. It's a bit off. It's also trying to be a stealth game, which doesn't work, especially for the Resident Evil 7 gameplay. But it was fun when you got to punch things. I guess since we're talking about the molded and Ethan's potential survival thing, we might as well talk about the ending to this game and what we think Resident Evil 9 is most likely going to be like. So, the end of the game, Ethan sacrifices her, which, I won't lie, it shocked me, because there's never been a Resident Evil game in the mainline game, I should say, I'm not sure about spin-offs, where a main character dies. Like, every character from the first game is still around. Chris, Leon, Claire, Jill, and even Rebecca, somehow, even though she's not been seen since Resident Evil 0. So, the fact all these characters are still alive really just made me think, they're kind of like the whole Marvel and DC sort of thing, where, they're too iconic, they can't be killed off. But then Ethan, even though he had quite a big fan base, even probably bigger than Jill's, the fact they killed him off in the next game shocked me. And we don't even get to see his face.
Yeah. No, and that's interesting. And, like, in the first game, like, we never saw his face, but it was like, it's a first-person game. And so it wasn't, like, weird that we never saw his face. It didn't feel like it was a secret. It just felt like a gameplay mechanic. But in RE8, they go out of their way to keep it hidden. Like, even in the character model viewer, if you look at Ethan's model, it obscures the face.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, this is getting a little excessive. What's going on? What are you hiding?
What's even weird is that...
Does Ethan... Does he look like someone that we know? Is this like a secret? Like, does he secretly look like Wesker? Like, what's happening? Like, what's going on?
What's even funnier is that if you're in the house in the opening of the game and you explore a bit, if you look at Ethan's PC or laptop, his desktop seems to have shows him and Mia, but he doesn't fit on the screen. Like, his head's obscured by the top bit of the laptop.
Yeah.
So either he's really bad at doing desktop, or the Capcom have a weird sense of humor.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. It's very curious. And then when we have, like, I guess we should talk about the post-credit scene.
Yeah, I guess that's what we're kind of moving on to, because this is going to go into my thoughts about what Resident Evil 9 is going to be, especially with what happened with the BSA, which I'll let you say your piece first, though.
Yeah, so we get to see a grown-up version of Ethan's daughter, and what's interesting is, like, we don't really know the exact time frame, but it's possible that it's not, like, in the distant future. It's possible that his daughter, Rose, is growing at a much faster rate than normal humans. And they do leave some hints that this might be the case. For example, at the start of RE8, you can find, like, some birth records that show that when she was born, Rose was, like, really big for a baby that was just born, like, for a newborn.
Yeah, like,
so
even I did kind of think, like, wow, you're big baby when I first started.
Yeah, and so right out the gate, it feels like it's possible, and like that would be like the convenient way to be like, oh, here's how we make this child character relevant to the story in a short period of time, because like if she aged at a normal rate, then she might not be relevant to the plot until all the other characters are senior citizens. So like, this is a convenient way to make her relevant quickly. But on top of that, it raises some interesting questions because it's clear that she has some sort of supernatural powers connected to the Megamycete. And she has one line of dialogue where, like, someone says something like, oh, you remind me a lot, or you're a lot like your father. And she's like, I know. Which is interesting because that could be suggesting that all the people who were absorbed by the Megamycete are still alive through Rose.
Yeah.
Like, she might have like psychic, like I doubt anyone, I doubt you've read Dune, but in Dune, a book series, they have a similar thing where it's like these certain people of this family can like talk to and have conversations with anyone who they're from their biological past in their minds. And this could be a similar thing where like Ethan kind of lives on through her.
Yeah, I mean, like we mentioned with Evelyn, despite the fact that she got blown up,
very, very, very deaded.
Very deaded. I'm just picturing Chris is just looking at the giant corpse of her and goes, "That is one very deaded BOW."
Yeah, but we get to see her again in RE8 because she lived on through the Megamycete, and that's really cool and interesting. And it brings up the possibility of characters who coming back. And one thing that's kind of interesting is that at the very end of the post-credit scene, you can see that, as Rose's car drives off into the distance, there's some person walking along the side of the road, and Rose's car stops right next to the person, as if they weren't expecting that person to be there.
Yeah, because I remember
and there's a lot of speculation
when I finished my Let's Play on that, I did think, like, are you going to end it? Why are you just showing me some random guy just walking in the distance?
Yeah, it was a very strange and protracted ending scene that didn't... It feels like, okay, this feels significant. Why are they showing me this? And while we don't know for sure, people who have hacked the game and have zoomed in on the distance have found that the person walking along the side of the road actually does have Ethan's character model.
I don't think that was done by accident either. I don't think they could have done any model there, but the fact they specifically chose Ethan is clearly hinting at something.
True. But at the same time, they also gave the model a face, which they don't normally do with Ethan. So it was kind of strange. It was interesting, strange, and we're not sure what to make of it. But this could just be their way of saying that maybe Ethan isn't dead. If she has power over the mold, maybe she can create people from mold. Maybe she can summon Ethan back as a dude or something. Who knows?
Are you saying that she's going to treat Ethan like a Pokemon?
She could be like, Lady Demetress, I choose you, and summon all sorts of like molded monsters. I don't know.
That would be great. I love that.
That would be hilarious.
That would actually, okay, joking aside though, that would actually be a cool thing. Like, I don't know, maybe similar to what Alucard does in Hellsing, where he can summon like the powers or the body parts of like people he's devoured. So maybe there could be a moment where, I don't know, she's in a fight and she summons Lady Demetress's claws to defend her. So it could be something like that.
That could totally be a thing. Like
and I'm not against it.
No, I have no reason to be against it either. But it's like, it's hard to say. It's clear that they wanted you to do something with Rose in the upcoming game.
She's going to be a main character, or she's going to be relevant to the group that she's with. I don't think are Chris's group. Like, either that's going to be more explained in a DLC, or it's going to be explained in the next game. So I feel like the next game we're going to play as Chris. The next installment to the story, not obviously Resident Evil 4's remake's going to come out before it.
But that's a good thing to bring up, though, is because if I'm Capcom, I would think, oh, Resident Evil 4 remake. You know, it'd be really convenient. Some post-credit scenes, some secret cutscenes that you can unlock, which show more about the modern timeline. I suspect the end of the RE4 remake game is going to have some cutscenes hinting at developments in the overall world and the timeline.
I think we can safely say that Resident Evil's kind of had a soft reboot. Like, the remakes, sure, they follow the same story, but there are some very obvious changes with the characters and stories. Like, for instance, Ada's not as manipulative as she was in the original games. Like, when you play Resident Evil 2's remake, she's a bit more sympathetic and, you know, she's more caring towards Leon and not just trying to, you know, get his boner blood boiling.
Lol.
Like, she actually did kind of show some sort of affection towards Leon, like, even to the point when Leon was literally trying to lift her up before she died, or died, quote unquote. Like, she wanted Leon to escape, and she felt like if he was too busy obsessing over her, then he wouldn't have escaped. So
certainly.
So I feel like
she ends up giving him the rocket launcher that saves his life. So
yeah, so I feel like she's gonna still be that sort of character, because if you played Resident Evil 4, well, you have played it, haven't you, or watched it?
No, I've played it.
Okay, you played it. So you kind of get she's not exactly like how she is in the remake for the game. She's a bit more on the manipulative and, you know, two-sided coin situation. Like, she's trying to profit.
She's always been a double agent. Like, and Leon knows this.
Yeah, but in the Resident Evil 2 remake, she didn't exactly want to use him like as a puppet. She wanted Leon to get out of there, you know, like, you should just leave.
Yeah, but that's because he was like, you know, just a civilian, effectively. You know, like, he was unimportant. He wasn't worth manipulating for the most part. She only really
I'm not saying Ada's a good person, let's be real here. She's not. She works for Albert most of the time, but yeah,
I mean,
she's not
She's a complicated character.
She's not evil.
And certainly not as evil as, like, she's not, I wouldn't say she's evil the way the villains are.
She just wants
she's
money.
Complicated, to be certain.
She's like the Boba Fett, you know. She doesn't see any need to harm civilians. If she can profit off some sort of suffering, then she probably would take it, but not to the extent of, like, torture or stuff like that. You know, just manipulating.
Yeah, she's a complex character, and she's only really gotten appearances in a couple games, so she's not as fleshed out as she could be. But I digress. I think RE4 will be a place where they expand on what RE9 is going to entail, or expand on how Leon is going to fit into the overarching story of Neo, Umbrella, and, you know, what it feels like we're building up towards something.
Yeah, and funny about Ada, I think she is going to be in Resident Evil 9 as a playable character. Because
who?
Ada.
Gotcha.
Because I feel like they could try. I feel like they're trying to do something similar to what they tried to do with Resident Evil 6, which they had all these fan favorite characters, Chris, Leon, and Ada, as well as some new characters in there too. One for the co-op reason, and two just because they're familiar, like Sherry Birkin as an adult. You know, that was kind of just an Albert's son, which to this I'm still wondering, like, did he have sex with the virus, or did he have not with the virus? I meant, like, did he have a relationship after he got infected, or was this before? You know, so
yeah,
it was kind of like trying to be like the Avengers Endgame. You know, you have all these characters that are in this scenario, and they're all trying to work together. I feel like they're trying to do that. You know, with the remakes.
Like, if they're gonna do that sort of thing, they really need an overarching villain, because right now they keep killing all their villains. So
can you imagine some bullshit that Albert is somehow still alive? Like, he's all burnt up as a Chris, like, Chris, just crawling with
honestly, I would not put it past them. Albert has always been their most consistent overarching villain. So I would not put it past them to have them resurrect Albert.
Like,
That seems incredibly possible.
to be fair, I feel like unless they remake Resident Evil 5, which I don't think they're gonna do, let's be real, because given the fact they've already referenced the boulder punching from in Resident Evil 8. But so many of their villains, like how every villain in Resident Evil's been destroyed is by disintegration or just complete annihilation. Not just, you shot my heart, I shall now fall off a ledge. No, every villain or monster has been killed with some sort of like devastating weapon or bazooka.
Yeah.
So, and Albert is unfortunately one of those characters. He was in a volcano, burning alive, and not only did he get blown up with a rocket launcher, his head got decapitated by their missiles. So, Albert alive would be a stretch. Unless there was like a little finger just crawling out the volcano, like, and he regenerated from that.
I mean, anything's possible in the magical world of Resident Evil, but...
I mean, we already suggested Evelyn could be alive still, so who knows? Maybe she'll return as like some sort of adult Albert, a female Albert. Can you imagine?
The problem is that Resident Evil has always been very episodic. They always have just like, here's the villain for this game, defeat them, and then they're dead. Like Sadler's super dead, Birkin's super dead, Miranda is super dead. Like every major villain dies, and they typically don't come back. With Wesker being the only exception. But even he's dead now. So it's like, I'm not sure how they're gonna make this a very super engaging franchise, to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong, I adore Resident Evil 2 Remake, but like, it's a very self-contained game.
Yeah, like many of the scientists from that area are dead. Like even in Resident Evil 3's remake, Nikolai, who he was an entertaining villain as well, but he's also dead. He got blown up. He got nuked.
Yeah, very much. And it's just, I don't know. I don't know what they're gonna do. It could be good. Don't know if it'll be amazing though.
Yeah, I guess to wrap up, I'll give. Have you said your piece? Anything else to add?
Nope. I think I've said everything I have to say about RE8. Pretty good game overall. Solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I guess to wrap up my thoughts for Resident Evil 9, I feel like they are building up some big, like this is going to be big, like, and with how Resident Evil 8 ended, the BSA, which were the BOW like attack force, after Chris sort of brought his own group together, it seems like. Because from what I know, he joined the BSA in Resident Evil 6, but clearly something happened in that game that made him sort of form his own little vigilante group, which I will say, the characters he had with him as they took down the village, they did have some sort of personality to them each, and they clearly have experience fighting BOWs. And I do hope we get to see more of them, and they're not just going to be those soldiers that just get killed off by BOW. Like, if you saw the footage from Resident Evil 6, nearly every soldier group you end up joining just all die. They're literally the stormtroopers of the heroes. They're just there to get killed brutally. It's tragic because poor Chris, man, it's like every group he's a part of get torn apart by some sort of zombified monsters. But this group seem like they know what they're doing. Like, you know, they know how to deal with BOWs, especially Chris, man. But what's interesting is that the BSA, the group that was built to deal with all the monsters that Umbrella has, you know, created, they seem to be using BOWs themselves. Now, the soldiers that they find, like, because the BSA tried to send soldiers in there, but they died. They were useless.
Yeah.
But it revealed that the BSA soldiers are actually what look like T-virus zombies. These aren't just regular zombies. These straight up look like T-virus zombies. So that just makes me think, like, are they experimenting with Albert's tyrants? Like, are they going to try and create their own new nemesis? Like, are they really going to try that again?
It went so well last time.
Exactly, right? It couldn't even kill one police officer. It killed one train of innocent people, so maybe we could do better.
2 trains. But yeah.
So, I'm obviously looking forward to Resident Evil.
It definitely seems like... Sorry.
So I'm obviously looking forward to Resident Evil 9 and as well Resident Evil 4 Remake. Resident Evil 4 Remake is clearly going to tie into Resident Evil 9. I guarantee that's what's going to do.
Definitely.
And that's all I had to say. Do you know what? Even though it sounded like we were being kind of negative about this game, nah, this game is still fantastic. If you haven't played it yet, go play it. It's such a good game.
Yeah, easily one of the best Resident Evil games. It's looks good. It has plenty of great characters. The gameplay seems pretty fun, from what I've been told. And overall, it might not be necessarily the absolute best Resident Evil game, but it's still a great game. It's still definitely worth your time. Maybe wait until it's on sale, but it's definitely worth your time.
I mean, yeah, if you're one of those people who can't really afford those brand new games that are now going up to like 70 quid now, like bloody hell, then definitely pick up. I'd definitely say 40 quid or whatever it is in dollars is worth. Is how much the game's worth, because even after you've completed the game, you can replay it again at the higher difficulty, and there's also the Mercenaries mode, which is like similar to the old school games where. It's just a field of like monsters that you fought through the game, and you just build up your high score. It's fun. So there's a lot of replay value for the game. So I feel like 40 quid is worth it. So, or just do what Jaru said, just get it on offer. Which again, still supporting the developers, so can't hurt.
Yeah. Although I'm the guy who thinks that any game priced above $20 is a scam, but I'm a cheapskate apparently. So
well, you were saying that you recommended Undertale, which was a cheap game, and yet I consider that probably one of the best games I played. So I got more than what my money's worth.
Yeah, Undertale's a big reason why I think that buying a $60 game is a scam. It's like I got Undertale for like $3 on sale, and it was like the best game ever. So. Yeah, needless. I digress.
This is coming from two peasants. We're not all living like gamer kings like Ninja and PewDiePie, but we'll get there eventually.
Interesting theory.
But yeah. So should we wrap up this video? That was 2 hours long. Sean, I do apologise for how much you're probably going to have to edit.
Rip.
Rip Sean.
But yeah, should we do outros?
Yeah, so thank you all so much for watching this. This is probably going to be in 2 parts, because no way I'm going to make people sit for 2 hours of this. So thank you all so much for watching. If you enjoyed what we had to say about the game, be sure to share the video around and get the channel growing. If you're curious about what I thought of the game prior, my entire playlist of the game is currently on YouTube. I've completed it, so give that a watch. And if you enjoy Jaru's opinions, his high quality opinions, that definitely does not get him backlash from people with very short tempers, then follow him on Twitter and subscribe to his YouTube channel.
Absolutely. I upload videos about as frequently as Genghis Khan, but I'm giving out hot takes on Twitter every day, for better or worse. God save the Queen.
It's actually more entertaining seeing the replies you get for those tweets. No offense, you give some good opinions. It's just funny seeing how people get so angry.
Oh yeah, I'm the worst.
So your outro?
Like if you enjoyed the video, comment if you got something to say, subscribe if you want to see more, and as always, have a fantastic day.